So how's everyone doing? It's been a long day, a great day. And what I'm going to be doing is some very practical hands-on presentation. How many people here consider yourselves developers? And how many consider yourselves Unity developers? So the rest of you can go get coffee or something. No. Yeah. No, what I'm going to just sort of talk about is some of the challenges and best practices that we've found as Unity developers. Just a quick introduction to myself. I'm Jonathan Linowes. I live up in northern New Hampshire, and I'm an alumni of the MIT Media Lab. I have an undergraduate degree in fine arts, and so I've done artsy things, I've done researchy things, and now after 20 years of being in business, I do really hands-on practical stuff. No. So my company is Parkerhill Reality Labs. We are an indie studio and do games and client work. I've also written some books that are outside. Augmented Reality for Developers is a projects-oriented Unity book. A lot of different applications that we saw today. There's some sort of quick demo projects in that book. I also have a Unity VR projects book. So if you're interested in getting into this stuff, this is a great way to, there's also videos and everything else, but people who like books, these are fun. Some of the games that we've done, we have a power solitaire game that is on multiple platforms, and we just released it on the Oculus Go. And so one of the issues with doing casual gaming for VR and AR is the idea is that you want to get it on as many platforms as possible and as many devices as possible. It's not like specifically a Steam thing or whatever. So that was the challenge that we had to do, and we developed a toolkit called BridgeXR. So when you develop in Unity, one of their stated objectives is that you create once and build many. So you have your app, but you would target it for Android or iOS or standalone systems. And you have build settings in Unity to do that. But in VR and AR, it's not really platform specific, it's device specific. And so you might be for AR Core or AR Kit on iOS, or Oculus Go, which is Android, or Daydream, which is Android, or Gear VR, which is Android. So you have all these different headsets, VR headsets. You have AR, handheld, wearables, lots of different tracking mechanisms. You have different input options like gaze-based, clickers, 3 degrees of freedom, 6 DOF controllers, tracking, voice, gesture. So how do you build an app that can handle as many of these as possible and be sort of future-proof? Unity has some built-in tools that are trying to abstract some of this stuff, including these XR device SDK, input manager for abstracting input. They're developing a new input system, which is now in beta. There's some bundled packages that abstract some of this out, like Vuforia for AR. There's a AR Foundation classes, which is in beta, and Project Mars, which is a mixed AR studio, which is in alpha. So they're moving with this stuff, but and some VR Foundation classes. But generally, even with any of those tools that are built into Unity, you still need to install a higher level toolkit, an SDK, whether it's the Mixed Reality Toolkit or the AR Core Unity tools or whatever. And each one of those come with their own components and prefabs and shaders and tools. So if you're trying to develop a single app that maybe targets the different devices but uses a lot of the native features of these target devices, you're in a quandary here. So again, here's the picture of your app with all these target devices. But then you have all these different toolkits. And then you decide a path for, all right, you know, here this picture is saying I'm going to use Daydream, so I'll use Daydream elements. So this is what we end up with. Okay, so it's kind of a mess. So just to recap, you have all these different devices, you have different SDKs, you have, there's no single solution. There are some toolkits that try to abstract that out. You can have different projects for each target, you can have code branches. These all have problems. So what we've done is at Parkerhill is we've come up with some best practices to manage this thing. And one of these is by componentizing your project into sub-scenes that are added additively, and so then you can select which hierarchy of a project you want to add based on your target device. You could have conditional objects, conditional behaviors, semantic-based events, and folder exclusions. I only have 3 minutes left, but I'll kind of run through these real quickly. And then we've developed this toolkit called BridgeXR that helps manage this. You don't need the toolkit. You can do all these things manually. We've just added some tools to help facilitate implementing these best practices. So with the BridgeXR, you can write your app, one version of your app, not have lots of different branches, but then still using those SDKs, but target the device that you want. So using the BridgeXR, you import our toolkit, you define some bridge IDs, you can set up scene bridges, prefab bridges, and component bridges, and folder exclusions. The concept of an additive scene, for example, player rigs, camera rigs. If you've implemented this, you know what I'm talking about. In AR, you might have a screen, handheld AR versus wearable AR. So one, your menus are in screen space. The other, your menus are in world space. But you might want your app to run, be able to build it for either one. So you could put those in separate scenes. Conditional objects. Examples of conditional objects may be a low poly version versus high poly version of your object if it's mobile versus desktop. Video players, input controller models. It will vary from one target device to the next. Conditional behaviors. In Unity, you have objects, and then you can apply component behaviors to each object. And the higher level SDKs come with a whole library of behavior components. But from one library to the next, these are different. So you would want, for example, input event listeners, grabbing and detecting and highlighting, and other kinds of behaviors like physics. So just, these are some pictures of like the mixed reality toolkit for the HoloLens, Steam VR Interactable, VRTK Interactable. The fourth one is to not use input events that are native to the SDK, but abstract those out to be application-specific types of events. And then lastly, this is a really practical thing, but if you input multiple SDKs and you try to do a build, you might get build errors because there's conflicting code or shaders or namespaces and things like that. And so there's some tools that you can do to manage that. The takeaways is that our toolkit it's not a new toolkit, it's an in-editor tool for managing your toolkits. And it gives you some insurance against SDK fragmentation and kind of future-proofing your apps. We have a white paper on our website if you go to parkerhill.com, and it goes through this in more detail, and definitely feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in talking about this or learning more. Thank you.